Network Dojo.
Hey, Jeff Rensink here from Network Dojo, and this video is going to talk about studying for the CCNP. If you're studying for that today, how the new program change affects you. All right. So what's this all about? So for the people who have already started working on their CCNP in the current program, or you're thinking about working towards your CCNP in the current program, wanting to know how is this new program change coming down the pipe February 24, 2020, going to impact you so that you can make the smartest decisions towards how much work you're putting in or which exams you're putting that work into today. So we're going to talk about what's happening to the CCNP track as a whole, what happens if you don't finish all of the exams for that CCNP before the program change happens February 24, 2020, and then how you can make smart decisions where to focus your studies. So some details before we look at each CCNP track, because we will look at every current CCNP track one at a time in detail, at least in terms of how things are being affected on it. So for every single track, this all holds true. The new program goes into effect February 24, 2020, so figure out how many days or months that is from here to now. You know how much time you have to work with. If you get your CCNP before then, you're good. You will have a CCNP after then as well. Now, sometimes your CCNP name might change because not every track carries over into the new program. We'll mention which ones do and which ones don't. But that new CCNP that you get in the new program will inherit the same expiration date as what your CCNP was just before the program change happened. And so if I had a CCNP today that expired January 1, 2023, it will still expire January 1, 2023 in the new program, even if I get a different CCNP after the change. Another thing in the new program, every single CCNP of every track that they have requires now only 2 exams to pass. One of them is called a technology core exam. This is kind of a broad, large exam that covers kind of all the technologies in the related track. So if your security is your track, it's going to talk about all the different security topics within there. And then you have to pass another exam called a concentration exam. And there's usually many different options, 4, 5, 6 different options in each track of concentrations. And these sort of deep dive into a specific aspect of the track. Again, if you're security, I maybe shouldn't use this because I don't know all the concentrations, but there's probably one specifically about firewalls, maybe one specifically about VPNs, kind of stuff like that. So we take sort of one decent chunk of the track as a whole and dig deep into that one thing to the exclusion of other things. And so if you pass both of those, technology core exam and the concentration exam, in the new program, that would get you that CCNP. Much different from today, where sometimes we have to pass 3, 4, or I don't know if there's more, but definitely 3 or 4 exams today for the majority of the CCNP tracks out there. So if you pass 1 or more CCNP exams prior to the change, so you didn't get the full CCNP, but you had already passed at least 1 or 2, maybe even 3 exams prior to the change, you are going to get credit towards passing at least, well, you'll get credit for something in the new program, for sure. And I say you may get credits because it's not necessarily a one-to-one mapping in every case. Sometimes it takes 2 exams to get credit for 1 exam in the new program. But even if you don't get credit for exam, they do give you these little badges. So you have something to show for your work prior, but we're mainly focusing on, okay, what's the best use of our time to get that CCNP after the change happens. So the nice thing here is it is not all or nothing. It's not like if you didn't get the CCNP in this program, you start from square one necessarily. There's a good chance that you can get one of those 2 exams credit for that, and leaving you only 1 left to pass after the program change happens. So to figure this out, there is a migration tool for every single track online, which we'll show you really quickly. It shows the translation of old to new. And again, sometimes it's a one-to-one mapping. You pass this exam in the old method, or the old program, you get credit for this exam in the new one. Sometimes it's multiple to 1. You got to pass these 2, these 3, sometimes it's even these 4. But you have to pass multiple exams sometimes to get credit for a single exam. And usually that's that core exam. If you want credit for that core exam, it usually takes more than one exam to pass in the old. That translates to the core exam. Whereas the concentration exams usually is more like a one-to-one mapping. All right, so when you get credit for an exam in the new program, the exam in the new program will have an expiration date. You know, every exam normally is valid for 3 years. Even in the old program, that's the way it works. And so you need to, you know, get the larger certification before an individual exam within that certification expires out. But once you get the certification, then you renew the certification. That's, you know, that's the way it works today. That's the way it will work again in the new program. And so if I pass an exam that has a one-to-one mapping, that new exam will inherit the expiration date of the previous exam I passed. So if I passed, if we're talking, say, route switch, and I passed the troubleshoot exam today, and let's say that it had an expiration of January 1, 2023. The corollary exam is a concentration exam that's escaping me at the moment, but that would have the same January 1, 2023 expiration date in the new program. So it just carries right on over. You don't get more, but you also don't get less. Now, when there is sort of a multiple to one mapping, again, the most common is a 2-to-1 mapping. The expiration date of the translated exam will inherit the expiration date of the final exam in the group that was required for the mapping. So again, 2-to-1 mapping scenario. Let's say that you pass exam 1 January 1, 2019. You pass exam number 2 February 1, 2022. The credited exam that you will get that relied on both of those two exams will inherit the expiration of the final exam, which would be 3 years after February 1, 2020 or February 1, 2023. So hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, now we're going to dig into each one. And actually, before we do, just really quickly, this is the NP migration tool. I'm going to spell out most of this stuff in the slides, but if you get into here, just Google this, you'll find a link pretty darn quick. But you can go into a particular track and start saying, okay, well, if I pass this exam before the cutover, I actually don't get credit for anything. It's not one-to-one in every event. But if I pass both route and switch, okay, then I get credit for the core, the enterprise core. If I only pass T-shoot, I get credit for Enterprise Advanced Infrastructure Implementation, which is a concentration exam in the CCNP Enterprise. And so you just need to know, okay, well, if I put in the work and pass this exam, will I get something for it on the other end? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes you got to pass 2, sometimes more. So as we sort of look at each of these tracks and you find the track that you're interested in, you can figure out, okay, well, I have time to pass 1 exam. What's the best exam to pick so I get credit for something afterwards? Or I do have time to pass 2 exams. Okay, what are the best 2 to pick so I get the most credit and not sort of lose out on the effort? The last thing you kind of want to do is, you know, put in the effort and money to pass an exam that then translates to nothing, or at least effectively nothing, in the new program. Cisco will remind you, well, you get a little badge from the exam that you pass, but you're probably working for the NP. That's the goal you're looking for. You're not looking for this other little badge. You're looking for that NP. Okay, back to the slide. So we're going to go through each of the tracks now. So if we get to your track and you're done, there probably won't be too much left for you at the video. You know, shoot to the end, see if I say anything interesting at the end. But here we go. So first, CCNP Cloud, and we're just taking them in alphabetical order. This certification actually goes away in the new program. If you achieve the CCMP Cloud prior to the new program, you will get the CCNP Data Center certification. So that's the translation that's going to happen. So you don't lose your CCMP, you just sort of get a different CCNP. That CCMP Data Center will inherit the same expiration that your CCMP Cloud had moving into the translation. Here's the downside for people who are currently working for this one. This one really got kind of shafted, unfortunately. If you do not complete the entire CCNP Cloud certification before the change, there is no way to get credit for any of the NP Data Center exams. And so you would have to do both NP Data Center exams if you wanted a CCNP Data Center in the new program there. So this one, I think, is the only one that's an all or nothing. Pass it, you get the data center in the future. Don't pass it, and it just kind of goes away. All right, collaboration. This one stays in the new program. It's called collaboration in the new program. So if you achieve your CCMP collab prior to it, you retain it in the new program. Expiration date remains unchanged. If you're currently working towards the collab NP, if you pass both the CIP-TV 1 and 2 exams prior to the change, that will give you credit for the core exam. If you pass either of the other exams, you get credit for a concentration exam. So if you only have time to pass one exam between now and the program cutover, make it one of these other exams. Because if you only pass CIP-TV 1 or only pass CIP-TV 2, those don't translate to anything, and you would effectively not get much of anything for your efforts there. All right, data center, this one also stays the same. It's called data center in the new program as well. So nothing changes. You have a CCMP data center prior, you have a CCMP data center after. Expiration remains unchanged. If you are currently working on the data center certification, you need to pass both the DCII and the DCUCI exams to get credit for the core exam, so a 2-to-1 mapping there. If you pass any of the other data center exams, I think there's maybe 3 or 4 other ones, you will get a concentration. So 1-to-1 mapping for every other individual exam in the data center current program. So again, if you only have time for one exam, make it a concentration exam. Don't do one of those 2, DCII or DCUCI, and not get the other. All right, CCDP, the design track, this one is going away as well. If you had achieved CCDP prior to the program change, you will get the new CCNP Enterprise certification for free. It will inherit the same expiration that your CCDP had. Now, if you're currently working through the CCDP, so there's 3 exams in that one, if you pass both route and switch, you get credit for the Enterprise Core exam if you want to get into that Enterprise track. If you pass the Arch exam, you will get a concentration exam. So only time to pass one exam, make it the Arch exam. CCNP routing and switching. This one's technically going away. Really, it's being rebranded. So in the new program, CCNP route switch is really just being called CCNP Enterprise. So Enterprise is inheriting some stuff from the other ones, but most of what it's inheriting is from the route switch track for sure. So this will inherit, if you had the CCNP route switch before the program change, you will get the new CCNP Enterprise. Will inherit the same expiration that your route switch NP had. If you're currently working on the route switch, if you pass both route and switch, you get the core exam credit. If you pass T-shoot, you will get a concentration exam credit. Only time for one exam, make it T-shoot. Security stays in the new program as well. So if you have CCMP security beforehand, you still have CCMP security afterwards. Expiration remains unchanged. Here's a tougher one though. So if you're working currently on your CCMP, you can't get credit for the core exam unless you pass all 4 current exams. And if you pass all 4 current exams, well, then you have the CCMP security. So you can't really get credit for the core exam if you're only caring about CCMP. It is helpful though if you're planning on going for the CCIE security after the program change. So I actually have another video about that. Not about the security, but for people trying to go for their CCIE in the new program. Every individual exam, though, does give you a concentration. So basically on this one, if you pass just one exam, it's really no different than if you pass 2 exams or 3 exams in terms of getting you down the road towards getting that CCMP in the new one. Because you only need 1 concentration exam in the new program, concentration plus the core. So since you can't get the core without getting the entire thing, here, either just limit yourself to passing 1 exam in the current CCNP security program or try to pass them all. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of lose out a little bit. Service provider, yet another one that stays the same in the new program. So have it before, you still have it afterwards, same expiration date. If you are currently working towards your service provider certification, if you pass the service provider core and route exams, you will get credit for the service provider core exam in the new program. If you pass any other exam, you get a concentration. So again, only time for 1 exam, make it a concentration. All right, I think we're wrapping it up here. CCMP wireless, the one near and dear to my heart. Well, unfortunately, this one's going away. It's getting absorbed into the enterprise. So if you have a CCMP wireless prior to the program change, you will get the CCMP Enterprise certification for free. Will inherit the same expiration of what your CCMP wireless had. This is another track where you can't get credit for the core exam without just getting the entire thing. So really the best that we can do in the wireless world is get credit towards a concentration exam. And there's kind of overlap in the transitions. Here pairs map to the same concentration. So let's take a look at this one actually in detail because it's a little different. So for the wireless people, if you pass just design, you get enterprise wireless design. If you pass just deploy, you also get enterprise wireless design. And then I think the same thing is true for the last two. If you pass troubleshoot, you get the enterprise wireless implementation, and secure also the implementation. And so if you wanted to get two concentrations in the future, you would want to pass one of these two and then one of these two. But if all you care about is getting the CCNP, just pass one exam and then just kind of be done, unless you think you can get all four exams. Otherwise, if you only pass two or three, you don't get credit for more than really passing one, at least in terms of CCNP progress there. All right, wrapping things up. So now you know the different ways that you can get credit for exams in the new program. You can figure out, okay, how much time do we have between now and then? How many exams can I realistically pass between now and the end? If it's one, what's the best one exam for me to pass so I can get some credit in the new program? If it's going to be multiple, okay, if I can pass two exams, what's the best two exams for me to pass? Or you can figure out, I need to pass either one or a whole bunch of them. I'll know which one to choose, what makes the most sense to me, is just so you don't, ultimately waste your efforts there. And then you'll also understand how the program expirations translate over, so that you'll just kind of know what things will be in the new program to finish things up over there. With that, we'll say a big thank you. If you haven't checked out networkdojo.com, go ahead and do that. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, do that as well. We'll see you next time, and yeah, have a great one.